Hi, it's Amanda from LHL, and today I want to talk to you about the stages of minimalism. So I got involved in minimalism about the time that Marie Kondo's show came out on Netflix. And I actually started with investigating my budget. I was having problems covering medical expenses and all of my other life expenses at the same time because of a car accident. My medical expenses were going up dramatically. So phase one for me really started with budgeting and seeing where I was spending money, as well as I actually touched into recycling, I think, at that time as well. So it was highly money motivated at that time. I knew that my budget was too high on living expenses. So I'm saying that wrong. My budget was too high on rent. And so I knew I was looking at a move. And I was shopping around, and at the same time starting with Marie Kondo's approach to decluttering. And it wasn't bad. It was very eye-opening to go through her process because I filled my bed twice with clothing. Twice. The first time was just tops. The second time I actually found out I had about a fourth as much pants as I had, or bottoms as I had tops, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I actually donated 40 bags. Oh, not 40 bags. I donated 40 t-shirts that I had been saving from my life's activities, and I really realized I didn't even want a t-shirt quilt, so why am I hanging on to these? I kept the ones that I could still fit, and the super special ones I turned a couple into sentimental storage items. So this was phase one. It involved me house hunting and looking for a place that was realistic. What kind of square footage was I going to end up with? And we were looking at, everything I was looking at was going to be around 800 square feet, maybe 825, but not a lot more. And I was not going to have a lot of garage space, if even a garage, honestly. So I was looking at very small houses, and the place that I was moving from, I think maybe was 980, perhaps 980 square feet. And what was interesting was I did go ahead and buy a house in that time frame, and discovered that even though collectively with the basement I had more square footage, each and every space, the functional space that I would use, had less. So I had to pare down the kitchen significantly because I only had a blind corner cabinet, the sink cabinet, and a drawer, a tall drawer basically. And that's all I was going to end up with for lowers. And then my uppers were essentially one above the microwave cabinet, and then a blind corner, and a one standard, not even full width cabinet. It was like one wide door cabinet, and then a two narrow door cabinet. And so I was drastically lower on storage, which I wouldn't have even thought so because the kitchen I had before was an apartment kitchen. They're not super big, but I had a ton of stuff packed in there. Stage one was really all about that discovery of what my new life was going to be like, what I was going to need to let go of, and then doing this preliminary Marie Kondo. And it really was preliminary for me. When I started, I didn't have that vision of where I was going to be really hard on what I let go of. And this was stage one for me. So then in stage two, it was my move, and I didn't have, even though I'd seen the house, I didn't have a great plan for where everything was going to end up. So I put all of the things I didn't still know about, where they were actually going to end up, in what I called the box room. So you know you're not doing minimalism right when you have a box room. So it was the fourth bedroom, and my intention was long-term it would become a workout / meditation space, something like that. It wasn't something I was going to need quickly. So I threw all of the extras into that room. And it was originally going to be an upstairs room, and I had to, in the middle of the move, switch it to a downstairs room. So it was chaotic, to say the least. And I had still brought over all of my fantasy self stuff, all of my past self stuff. I had a lot to go through. Which brings me to stage 3. In stage 3, it was really about culling down to the life I actually had and the life I want. So this would be the things that I would need to live the life that I intend to live when I bought the house, what I was envisioning when I bought the house. So I have a bike trail right near me, a park right near me, actually a couple of bike trails very close to me. And that was going to be a large part of my life, was activity, going for walks, going for bike rides, that kind of thing. And so I really needed to go through and cull out these extra hobbies. I deal with, I don't want to say, it's not chronic fatigue syndrome, but a disorder that fatigues me and makes it very hard for me to start and finish long projects. And so I chose to let go of several hobbies that just took too long to set up and tear apart, like oil painting and acrylic painting. To me, there's too much set up and tear down. So I kept watercolor, but I let the other two go and all of the supplies associated with them. I also gave up on my fantasy version, which was scrapbooking, because it turns out that I'm the kind of person that would rather not be occupied in the moment with a camera. I just want to be able to enjoy myself and have the memory and the experience. So I let go of that. I also remodeled the house in stage 3, and so spaces were changing. I had to shuffle things around, but I also unintentionally remixed some of my donations and to sell items back into each other. So that was a mistake that I made a lot in phase 3, and unfortunately I hear so often that others do that too, and that it would be nice to stop that, but unless you did all of these things up front before the move, it's kind of hard. I also didn't have a lot of the same spaces that I had before, and I didn't properly envision what they would end up looking like. So my hall closet here, and you've seen videos before, you can check those out below. My hall closet has changed its intention and what I kept in there at least 3 times. Completely different things from when I started. In phase 4, I finally got the spaces down and dedicated spaces for these items that come in and you're not sure about, or the ones that are gonna go out but you don't have enough of them yet to justify a trip. So now I've made homes for donations, for repairs, as well as projects, the materials you're acquiring to do a project, and let's see, also recycling and mail. I had all of those places set up finally. So that was stage 4, when I could really maintenance mode, find things as I go and put them in there, and then later sort them out as to which direction they're going. Yeah, I call that stage 4, maintenance. But finding a place to put these things that you know exactly where to go when it's time to take something to donation, or something that you want to quarantine for a while, I use that same box as a quarantine box. So when it's time to go to the donation store, if I haven't needed to get and pulled it back out, it goes. Sometimes that's a couple of days, sometimes that's several months. It just depends. Stage 5 is actually more organizing than decluttering at that point. You might declutter further, you usually do. But at this point, you know what's really in that space, what you like having in that space, that this is the right place for it. And then what you are trying to do is make it a little more functional. So I've done this to my hall closet multiple times. I've done it to the bathroom closet, I did the bedroom closet. I went through several stages of getting the bedroom to where I wanted it to be, and you can check that out in a different post as well. And I think I showed that tour of the end result, but really the blog describes the process I went through better, of going from overflow of a small closet, dresser, under the bed, and a little bit in the basement as well, and slowly cutting that back further and further and further until now it can all fit in the closet, in just the closet. I don't need the dresser. So in stage 5, you can also pretty much keep everything up with just a quick daily tidy, and sometimes a catch-up tidy, if you will, if you've been sick or something like that, or crazy busy. You just go through in like 20 minutes. And I show some of those videos in the Tidy Home. They're just shorts for, you can see a before and after of how crazy I do let it get sometimes before I go ahead and pick everything back up. And I find that to be, my goal is to make that really realistic for you, so that you don't think that I have a perfect place all the time, that I am like anybody else, and it piles up and then we catch back up. But I can do that very quickly. So I'll show the times on there, like how long it took, or it'll be in the title. So that's an interesting little clip. I'd love to see yours if you have any. Feel free to drop a link in the comments. And then I want to put a little note in about paper, because paper is something I actually started when I did phase 1 with the Marie Kondo sorting. And I think she calls it paper. I'm not positive anymore. But so I'd already done books, they were separate, and now it was notebooks, 3-ring binders, loose leaf paper, mail, files, all of this stuff. And I had piles and piles and piles of it. Had to have been like 6 to 8 tall piles of paper. And I went through that like crazy. I shredded it a lot. I scanned a lot though, which is something you just kind of learn later, that you don't need to scan. It's a real waste of time, honestly. But I had to go through it, and I wouldn't be surprised if you have to go through it too. So feel free. If that's what helps you get rid of it, scan it, go for it. Eventually you get to the point where you have these as downloadable records, and you can just download and save them. Sometimes your bank or whoever will keep them forever, but usually they do eventually fall off. But as in the bank's consideration, in real life they fall off too. So there's a certain point where there's nothing that can be done about it anymore. And it's not necessary. If you haven't reconciled timely, going back 8 years is not really going to do anything for you. My main point here is that I did paper at least 5 times. I think I touched it in every one of those phases. And now I have business paperwork that I'm working into a new system of both electronic and paper versions, because I remember things better if I write them physically. And so that's a large part of my memory process, but I don't have to keep it in paper form long term. So I can show, I'm hoping to show some of that soon, where you can see how I handle business type activities. But for now, just know that don't be surprised if you have to go over paper and over paper and over and over and over again. But set up that system for incoming paper and the rules for what you're going to keep and for how you're going to keep them very early on, so that you can at least stop the craziness of the incoming paper and not get too far behind. So that's all I've got for the phases of minimalism, at least in my experience. Please let me know how it went for you, if you've also gotten to the maintenance phase of minimalism and how you lined up with my phases. I'd love to know. Thank you. And please subscribe and follow, and we'll see more with all the links. Check them out. Bye.